other people don't love regulations.
Yeah, it's not for me. I don't like it.
They don't like it.
Not a fan.
Regulation is not going to, right? They've tried. They had COP30, all the G7, G20 nations got together and said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna regulate ourselves into a better planet." That's just not going to happen.
There's less car accidents on the Autobahn than there are on the Long Island Expressway. Less regulation works.
Right. So regulation isn't going to work. But what
is that a real statistic?
It is.
It is.
I don't know. I heard 80.
You've never driven on the Long Island Expressway.
No, I heard one time 80% of statistics are made up on the spot. So
I can't argue with that one either, but this one actually happened. I don't know if the numbers are exactly right, but the idea is correct. The Autobahn has very few accidents in comparison.
Let's go!
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Hey, Matt. Today we're going to be discussing the business of not-for-profit. And on the podcast today, to help us navigate these waters, is Missy Mastel, with one S, founder and principal of Mastel Consulting, with two S's. Now, Mastel Consulting, they are a firm that streamlines everything that makes impact hard: accounting, fundraising, analytics, board development, and AI automation. The idea here is to let the fundraisers raise funds and not worry about the muck of administration and bureaucracy. So, Missy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for using that word impact. I hope it imbues everything we talk about today.
I think today's theme is impact, right? Let's start. I'm a history buff. Let's really start with where this all originated in America. Our founding fathers saw to it that America was not going to invest in the arts, in the humanities, in the not-for-profits. Okay, but they felt that American folks, we're decent, so we're going to give back. Right. So the only way it works in America is if people like you undertake to make this world a better place. So you do so through churches, you do so through not-for-profits, and you do so through nonprofits. And you'll explain to us the difference. But it's still a business and it's still tedious, right? The bills have to be paid. The electrical bills have to be paid. Events have to be organized. So there's a lot of tedium in running a not-for-profit. So please give us a deep dive on what Mastel does to help nonprofits and not-for-profits excel.
Thank you so much, Luigi. So I think what we want to start with, right, is sort of how nonprofits came into existence in the first place, right? The idea, the first nonprofits, and actually, let's start back a little further than that. Let's talk about the corporations in general, right? The idea of a corporation, when the Romans came up with corporations, they were to do social good. And if you look back at like the East India Company, the Dutch trading companies, all of those organizations, although they were profit makers, were people getting together to create something, whether it was an aqueduct in Rome, whether it was a trade route across the Atlantic or around Cape Hope. The idea of people getting together to do something good for the world is not new, right? And then, since you're a history buff, and then in about, when we started the Industrial Revolution, and we started our tax code, it became obvious that what people were looking to their government to do was to, again, continue these social goods, these social elements of good, right, in the universe. So the tax code started to create an element for that. Say, hey, we are going to be allowing people to take tax deductions wherever they support public good, right? And that's where nonprofits come from, right? A nonprofit, particularly because we use that term, right, is an organization that the government feels they're licensed as a nonprofit because the government feels they're doing some work that the government could do, and these people can do it better because they're more organized or more stratified. In some way, they're just a little better at they're going to be better. They have better access at getting these projects done. So we have this structure set up, and most people, because they're supporting their community through the 1940s and 50s, most people are contributing in some way to supporting these public good organizations, right? And then in about 1970 or so, Milton Friedman came out and said, no, the purpose of a corporation is different. The purpose of a corporation is to make money for its shareholders, right? It's to create a profit for its shareholders. And since that time, we've seen a lot of conflict, I suppose, between nonprofits and for-profit organizations. And we've seen people go like, well, do nonprofits, are they doing what they should be doing? We've seen a lot of scandal talk about in nonprofits with certain organizations that may be spending too much money on administration, and you may want to be seeing more money going into the end user and impact programmatic work. And that's where we come in. So we come in to try to take all of that other information. I'm a CPA. The people who work with me are all licensed administrative professionals. And we take all of that administration, we streamline it so that those organizations can continue to do the most public good that they can without having to worry about all of those administrative tasks, including the tech stack and whatnot have to do with fundraising.
So what size nonprofits do you work with? When somebody's just starting one out, I have a great idea. I'm going to open a nonprofit. I want to, raise money for kids to cancer. Is that too early to come to somebody like you?
No.
Because most people, I think they're just going to bootstrap it, right? And I think after year one and year two, they're like, I need somebody else to manage all this for me because it's getting overwhelming.
I think I think when people understand that a nonprofit does have some business elements to it, I think people will start to look for some assistance, some help, some guidance in terms of because the fact is that part of it, the administrative part of nonprofits, that's nothing new. So there are best practices. I mean, to use an accounting CPA term, there are best practices involved in running any organization. And in this case, like building a tech stack, right? I mean, who needs to build a tech stack? You don't want to have to try to reinvent that, especially you want to try to use whatever's working for other people. So,
Missy, on average, what would you guesstimate would be the percentage of funds raised that end up with the recipient? So let's say the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, another well-known entity. What's the ultimate percentage that goes to the needy?
The average percentage in the USA is about 70%. Our bottom line on that is 85. We don't work with any organization. That's our guarantee, is that organizations who work with us get 85% of their donations back into the mix of their end user programming. A lot of organizations, though, now have a very interesting mix of, just like any other business or organization, they have an interesting mix. They might have earned income from concerts they might put on, or real estate they might own. So, but our goal is that 85% of what's fundraised goes back into the programming.
I think that's
No,
I will tell you. Look, if you could, I think you should start offering your services to for-profits. We haven't come across a business with an 85% margin in a long time.
Yeah,
because I mean, if you think about what has to go behind the scenes, you have accounting, you need marketing, right? Marketing's not cheap, You need staff, you have volunteers, but you still got to feed the volunteers. There's a lot that goes into putting on events. A lot of these artists that you get for a nonprofit event, they still want to get paid too, right? They'll discount their time, right? But they still want payment, correct?
Yes.
Or no?
Again, and when we're talking about programmatic services, we're talking about things that aren't administration, right? So it's a little different, particularly the forms that we use to describe that. An event cost might be part of programming. The cost of putting on that event would be part of programming. The admin is the other stuff you were talking about, the marketing and the tech stack, the accounting, the legal support, all of that stuff would be more administrative type work.
Gotcha. So essentially, let's say we throw a huge dinner, right? You can actually take the price of the dinner and deduct that from what is being donated. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So that would be a fundraising expense. Like if you're doing a fundraising dinner.
So that would be programmatic or
programmatic?
No? I guess a programmatic. Okay.
Right, because you wouldn't do it unless it was part of what you were. It would be actually, technically, it would be a fundraising expense, right?
Okay.
So it would actually go into the 15%, but the program elements of it, the event, the food, the things that are specific for that, whatever marketing or media you're putting up, that would be that. I think what's interesting today, though, is that as you look at what's going on in for-profit organizations, you're finding more and more people understanding how important impact is, right? So you're finding a lot of people who you talk a lot about growth. I was listening to one of your other podcasts a little earlier today with Sean Languedoc, and you were talking a lot about how people grow, right? How do you make growth in your organization? And what I think is really interesting in nonprofits and for also your for-profit listeners is that this idea of impact and purpose is becoming something that is too big to ignore, right? The idea that even if you're running a for-profit organization, you mentioned OpenAI a little earlier, if you're running a nonprofit organization or a for-profit organization like Microsoft, you almost need to start thinking about what Harvard in 2011, Michael Porter called shared value, which is this idea that we have bigger fish to fry than just making money. And I know that's sacrilegious to say, but it's still true. There's bigger fish to fry. And corporations need to start thinking the way that the millennials are thinking, which is that these organizations are, that being a for-profit organization still requires you to have some social impact. And how do we go about doing that?
You used a wonderful example because you can make the argument that one of the reasons the Harvard endowment is so robust is because they pull at the alumni heartstrings with that impact statement.
Absolutely. I mean, Harvard is a nonprofit organization, flat and out, but you would never consider that, but their endowment is one of the largest in the world. Right? They make more money than almost anyone else does, and as a nonprofit. And so the reason is because people want to be connected. They want to be supporting a public good. And we're finding that happening more and more. So organizations like Subaru, which talk about how much they give in social good to parks and Meals on Wheels and the ASPCA, and I think there's one other one. You can go through an entire commercial of Subaru and never see a car. Right? They'll just tell you what social good they're doing.
But let's peel back the onion on that one.
Sure.
Let's look at the avatar of the Subaru purchaser, and they are drivers with those values are important to them.
Absolutely, 100%.
So nothing happens in a vacuum.
That's right.
I'm sure you know this, but Rolex is actually a non-profit. Most people don't realize that. Yeah, I knew you knew that. I didn't know if Luigi knew that one, or he might have told me that one.
That's what Matthew tells his wife every time he spends a lot of money on a Rolex. Honey, it's going to a good cause.
Well, I love that as an explanation. That's fantastic. More people, but let me be clear. I think more people are having those conversations than ever before. I think when we're talking to our children, when we're talking to college students, they don't necessarily just want to go to work and make $1 million before they're 30. I can't remember the last time I heard that as an objective. What they want to do is they want a planet they can breathe in, and one where there's water available to them, and they're willing to make some sacrifices to make that happen. And corporations can do both. And that's kind of where I'm living right now, is in that place where corporations and nonprofits can coexist.
I'm extremely uneducated here, so bear with me. I have a question.
You are not uneducated.
No, he's right.
No, I definitely am. I'm definitely the most uneducated person in this podcast right now. I promise you that.
He's also one of the smartest people I know, which is a real irony.
So let's say I decide I want to start a 501(c), right?
Yes.
And I say, I'm going to go raise money and I want to donate the money. Okay. Is there a charter inside this 501(c) that says I have to donate a percentage and I can invest a percentage of the money as well?
No. And so, your terms are just a little, if you start the 501(c)(3) and you're raising money, then you don't need to donate that money. If you're a foundation, you might need to donate that money. But as a 501(c)(3), you can use the money to create programs as well. So I just want to make sure.
Okay, so can we break down the foundation and the 501(c)(3)?
Sure.
For the audience and mostly for me.
So a foundation is an organization that may also, that can collect charitable donations, or a lot of organizations, like for instance, Salesforce has a foundation, right?
Okay.
Or Luxor, Exotic Luxor, they have a foundation. So a lot of people, Microsoft has a foundation. All of these organizations have a nonprofit element where they can raise money and also donate it out. Or not raise money, but just do, Salesforce takes 1% of its, can't remember if it's above the line or below the line tax revenue, but one of them, and donates that to a bunch of different people. And those are foundations, right? So a foundation is just serves the purpose of donating to other organizations, almost a clearinghouse, for lack of a better term.
So a clearinghouse or a fund of funds, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a nonprofit is one that actually does the programming. So they have programs that they do.
Gotcha.
Hey, Missy, let me give you a perfect example. This beautiful sweater that I'm wearing, this Slammin' Salmon that no one has complimented me on yet, is made by this outfit called North Sails. They make sailors' clothing, okay? But this sweater is made from recycled plastics that was retrieved from the oceans. So a schmuck like me hears that and reads the advertisement and sees the website, and that's an impact statement. So I'm going to buy this beautiful sweater that's made from recycled bottles, and I would love to even see the manufacturing process with that. Right. But there's an impact statement there, right? And I'm wearing the sweater today on this podcast. So yeah, what you're saying is very, very important.
Yeah. And you make that decision almost at a heart level. I mean, if every
100%.
If every corporation understood, right, how to tap into, all they want in their marketing is to be able to tap into that heart level. That's all they want.
But that's very particular to me. Like when I see refuse or a bottle in the ocean, it literally pulls at my heartstrings. It breaks my heart, right? So that whole mantra made sense to me. But let's talk even deeper about organization's most precious resource, and that's human resources, right? So in minding the P's and Q's, how can nonprofits pay competitively for those human resources and still stay inside the budget? Because you want to try to get the best the market has to offer, but you also can't afford to spend like Zuckerberg does and pays $100 million to AI engineers.
So, I mean, I think what we're seeing now, right, is in this workforce. So if you think about workforce as a universe, right, we're seeing new calls to what people want in their workforce, right? So my daughter just took a job at a B Corp, and we'll talk about B Corps in hopefully a second. But my daughter just took one, and they offered her stock options in a B Corp. So here's what she gets as a relatively new person in the workforce. She gets a place to work that has a purpose and a mission. She gets paid a competitive salary because they are a corporation and they make money. And she gets stock options, so if they ever go public, she has an opportunity to participate in that public. The work that she does creates revenue for her in the future, right? So organizations, nonprofits and for-profits alike, are looking at sort of how to combine these ideals. The perfect organization is answering the workforce's call for both purpose and profit, right? So imagine if organizations have done stock options with their employees for years, but nonprofits haven't. But now these nonprofits who are sort of like starting to look at themselves as purpose, and they could, depending on their organization structure, and we'll talk about B Corps in a minute, they could use those and actually create stock options and other incentives that are meaningful to them. I worked for one organization that was a conservation organization, and they sent their staff to Africa every year, right, as a perk.
Awesome.
Right? So they're learning how to create these
Round trip, of course, right?
What?
Round trip, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Glad I could clear that one up. But so I think that what we're seeing is people are looking for something different now. They want to get back to that place where there's a corporate and a community responsibility, right? A collective responsibility for the planet that we live in. And I think corporations, as they grow, as they look for workforce development, they're going to need to answer that call as well.
All right, you dangled the carrot. We're biting. What's a B Corp? We know what a B Corp is. We know what an S Corp is. What's a B Corp?
So a B Corp is basically people went around, when we started this process, when we sort of moved away from, people started to look around and say, the planet's, not doing very well with us in charge. And they said, one of the reasons is there's all this change. And so all this climate change and all these things. And so we came up with this idea that we were going to regulate ourselves into a better planet. But I'm an accountant. I love regulation, but I am singular, right? Other people don't love regulations.
Yeah,
right?
It's not for me. I don't like it.
You don't like it.
Not a fan.
Regulation is not going to, right? They've tried. They had COP30, all the G7, G20 nations got together and said, oh yeah, we're going to regulate ourselves into a better planet. That's just not going to happen.
There's less car accidents on the Autobahn than there are on the Long Island Expressway. Less regulation works.
Right. So regulation isn't going to work. But
is that a real statistic?
It is.
It is.
I don't know. I heard 80%.
You've never driven on the Long Island Expressway.
No, I heard one time 80% of statistics are made up on the spot. So
I can't argue with that one either, but this one actually happened. I don't know if the numbers are exactly right, but the idea is correct. The Autobahn has very few accidents in comparison. In any case, so we decided to create these organizations called B Corp. It's an organization called the B Lab, which does it. And what they do is they certify the organization, which is a for-profit organization, as having a purpose and a mission. Okay. So what they have is what we call a double bottom line. And then my dear friend, John Elkington over at Volans Corporation, he came up with this idea about maybe 10 or 15 years ago called the triple bottom line, because the third bottom line is the employees and the workforce development, right? And so these organizations that are B Corps are certified to not just be in a profit motive, although that certainly is, they have stock options, all of these things, but they also have a purpose and a mission, and it acts as a bottom line for them. And these triple bottom lines also have this workforce development one as well, which basically says our employees are just as much stakeholders as our shareholders. There's 48,000 B Corps now in the world, right? And a lot of organizations who may not be certified as B Corps, but are working with this purpose. And the reason is because they find getting talent, particularly those best-in-class AI engineers, is easier when you can talk to them about impact. You have, I don't know, maybe 1 million choices of sweater brands you can buy. but you chose the one that had an impact statement, right? And you may choose that just in a sweater. Some people want their whole lives to look like that. One of the things I say, because I work in nonprofits, is after I finished with my public accounting service and I went into nonprofits, I have never felt that I worked another day in my life, right? And people who want impact, people who want mission and purpose, feel that way too. They'll do just about anything to feel like they're leaving a legacy of impact.
Can you dive deeper into the mechanics of the B Corp? Because I don't fully understand it. So there's a triple bottom line. So let's say 50% of revenue or 50% of profit is going towards XYZ cause to make impact, and then 50% goes here.
It could be that, but not exactly. A B Corp is one that says we're going to use sustainability metrics, right? We're going to take into account how we purchase, what our supply chain looks like. We're going to take into account how we treat our employees, who has a seat on the board, right? Are we do we have representation, right? Do our union workers have representation on the board, or are they just, it's looking at things beyond just what's the biggest way to get the most profit impact. It's saying hypergrowth and short-term growth, and this is kind of an interesting thought, is all the organizations who want to talk about legacy seem to oxymoronically be focused on short-term growth. But right? But legacy is a long-term thing. And these organizations in particular are focused on sort of generational resilience. How do we survive by making sure that our people and our shareholders and our other stakeholders are all taken care of? So they have community elements, things like that they're taking into account as they do this, right? You can't just use up all the water in the place and say, oh, we beat our third quarter earnings this year, right? It doesn't work.
So let's say I wanted to open a 501(c), right? What are the first steps I have to take, and how difficult is it to get done?
It's not to do the 501(c)(3) itself isn't very hard. You just need the IRS. You need to be able to create a purpose plan, fill out a tax exemption form, talk about what your purpose is going to be, do about 3 years of projections for financials, and submit that to the IRS. The IRS takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 months, although those might be old metrics.
Yeah, it might be more like 3 years these days.
But I'm sticking with my story, which is 6 weeks to 8 months to review your information and get back to you. You have to set up just like a regular corporation. You need articles of incorporation, and you need, you need to be able to have officers and things like that. So it's not that hard. But you then need to file an informational return every year that says that you've done these things and what your impact has been.
Okay. Seems easy enough.
It's not hard. And I don't think the government wants to make it hard. I think the government wants for people who want to do good in the world to have as much shot at it as anyone else does.
Missy, my partner has the makings of a midlife crisis, and I think he's trying to put something together. Stay tuned. Stay tuned in future episodes.
I'll help him. No problem. Whatever you need, you just let me know.
All right. So now we created the 501(c). I live in, a small town. How do I go after big donors, and how do I compete with the bigger charities out there or foundations?
That's a great question. I think what you need to understand is what programmatically are you going to do, right? What good are you going to make in the world? Mm-hmm. And you're going to find donors for which those values resonate, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to include corporations, right? So if you are Budweiser and you have a factory in the city in which, or near the city in which you are, and you say, I'm going to clean all the water in wherever, where do I run into the Budweiser? In Minnesota, or in a piece of Minnesota, right? You can go to Budweiser and say, hey, I'm cleaning the water. And they're going to say, we're going to support you, because clean water is important to us, and we get to put it into our marketing materials that we're helping you do this, right?
Okay.
If you understand your value and your impact, your value proposition, what you're bringing, it's not that hard. I think
And who do I ask for at Budweiser? I'm not asking for the CEO.
You're asking for the head of the Budweiser Foundation. Excellent
There we
segue. Goes right back there. So a lot of organizations have foundations, and that's who you would ask for. And they're going to put you in touch with the marketing team. As a matter of fact, I always tell nonprofits, if you're not talking to the marketing team, you're not done selling your product, because the marketing team is the one that's going to create that sticky long-term relationship with what you're doing. They're the ones that are going to say, this is now, like Subaru, part of our marketing plan.
I love it. Missy, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and get in touch with you if they have questions on giving or setting up their own charity or hiring you to work inside of their charities?
I would be honored. So first of all, I love working at the cutting edge of where for-profit and nonprofit meet. So happy to do all of that work and help organizations any way that I can. You can reach me at my website, which is www.mastel.com. I also have an interesting book I wrote out just about millennials and what they need called Generation Giving Back.
Okay, nice.
And I have a new database coming out that's helping these for-profit and nonprofits find each other, because I think there's a lot of connection between them that we can, I'm going to use the word exploit, but really take advantage of. Both of those sound awful, but they're good. It's actually a good premise. And
well, no, I mean, that goes back to what we were saying. I asked you, where would I find these people?
Yeah.
How do I start?
Yeah.
Database would be great.
Yep.
That's the first step.
Yeah, and that's at impactnonprofits.co.
Okay.
Missy, you just piqued the curiosity. We want to be respectful of your time, but I have to ask the question. Can you tell us very briefly on how baby boomers, Generation X, Y, and millennials donate differently? What is a different impact for a boomer versus a Wyer?
Okay, a boomer versus, okay, so what I'll tell you briefly is that the boomers are all looking at making end-of-life strategies right now. So if you are a charity right now and you are looking for a big donation, or you are looking for a bequest or something like that, right now, the end of 2025 is like the sweetest spot you're ever going to find. So if you can get that together, that's going to be great for you.
Boomers are going bye-bye.
They are interested, and the baby boomers and Generation X in general is, if I can say so, feeling a lot of guilt about the planet that they've left for the millennials. And it's a good time to hit them up for things like climate change and education, and particularly investment in Africa and South America, which is really booming right now. Your millennials, which is probably the biggest differentiator, the X and Ys are, the millennials are looking for, they do smaller monthly donation programs, and they're really into that idea of contributing every week to something that's meaningful. That is a purpose-forward type of marketing. That's what you want to do. You want to do purpose-forward marketing with them, and understand that while you may not be hitting up big donations, you will be hit up those regular donations that they will never think about again, right? They subscribe to you, they donate whatever, $20 a month, and then you will get that donation for 20 years.
Does the tithing still exist?
So the biggest charitable contribution, the largest category, is religious, for sure. A lot of that has to do with community. And it depends on whether your community is a tithing community or not.
Yeah.
So I would say it exists, but more often than not, people are looking for what's that dollar value that demonstrates impact. Like if you think about the AICPA commercials or St. Luke's, they always say, give us $19 a month. That's because there's a tax element right there through 2025. But the idea is that if you can tie a dollar value to an impact, this much money buys this many books, this much money buys, say, feeds this many children, that's where you really create a very sticky relationship.
My Catholic church sends us a stack of envelopes every quarter. I think I want to go there one day and teach them the concept of the ACH.
Oh, please do. Please do.
In estate planning, there's actually a lot of beneficial ways to give back with charitable remainder trusts.
Mhm.
Right? What's the other one?
Bequests.
Lead trust. Lead trust, is that the other one? A charitable lead trust, a
Yeah.
CLT, right? And then donor funded what's it
Donor
called?
advised
Donor
fund?
advised fund. Yeah, right. So there's a lot of interesting ways, and I think people need to look more into that, especially if they plan on giving more, because it could be beneficial now to the charity, or even with a charitable remainder trust, you can get some income now into that trust, and then when you pass away, the remainder can actually go to the trust. So there's some interesting concepts there.
It's phenomenal. I mean, if you think about it, and I know there's a lot of noise right now, but we've set up a lot of great instruments and tools to help people really feel good about what they're leaving in the world. So I think we just need to research them. And I'm helping out.
Is that on your website too as well? You have tools out there to help everybody?
Sure.
Look at that?
I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, I think you definitely want to do whatever will preparation you're doing with a lawyer, but we can definitely show you what that looks like and sort of different organizations in the database that sort of align with your values and the different ways that you might participate in those things. I would also say that given the One Big Beautiful Bill, we're going to be seeing a lot more of what I call gift bunching and donor advised funds. So if you don't know what those are and you give regularly to places that you really love, let's talk.
I love it. Missy, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's go!